if you really want to get into dampers, then this coaching session will explain my philosophy to dampers in Le Mans Ultimate. And in this video, I'm just coaching two guys to help them understand dampers in a profound way, with first a detailed explanation and some exercises to actually see it happening, feel the changes. And this video is like full of like information and gems that will explain a lot of stuff that I normally cannot make in video. So turn it on as a podcast or something. Let's go. Ask dumb questions, dumb answers maybe, but that's on my side. So, the first thing I want to start out with is that the little bit of the idea of your dampers in your car is like the spice of your meal, right? I mean, if you have bad fundamentals, like you have bad meat or bad vegetables, putting on some salt and pepper will not solve the meal, right? However, you can definitely destroy a meal with too much salt. So I want to first explain a little bit of the like fundamentals on how I see dampers currently in Le Mans Ultimate on GT3 cars, a little bit of the direction where I'm going with it, and then later we start up a server on Spa with the Porsche. Yeah, you both know the Porsche, right? The and Spa a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, we know the Porsche. Spa is one of my least favorite tracks, but yes, I also know Spa.
Okay, so because I want you guys to actually feel the differences, and that difference is what you can like search for. So I can explain a lecture of like 90 minutes on what dampers do, but if you can actually feel it, then you get some context, and I will give you some presets to work with when you're doing dampers or when you're changing them. So I will share the setup on this Discord because that will be our exercise setup. We'll do that a little bit later. Before I start, do you have a particular thing or question or something you like want to start with, or just let me know?
Yes, I have something that I honestly don't understand. Like I took a look at the Coach Dave Delta setups, Go setups,
Yeah.
and the Hemo setups
Yes.
for the same track, for the same car. What I don't understand is that all three have completely different approaches on dampers.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like some go with really high compression. Someone goes really high with extensions, with expansion of the dampers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's really hard to wrap your head around it and understand why they're doing certain things.
Yeah.
Also, from my understanding, the dampers should follow the stiffness of the springs at, to an extent, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
see that people are doing things that are not related in any way possible, actually. Like super stiff springs in the front, but very, very soft dampers in the front as well, by
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
And so it's a bit confusing in a way. Why is that? Why do they take so many different approaches on them?
Yeah. So let me open up the. I'll share my screen and just let you try to explain why this is happening. So, if you are building a setup, you can see how the choices you make domino into different decision making, right? And it's all at a certain point when you move on and you try to tweak stuff, you get to a certain lap time, car behavior, and like the mix and sauce of those particular things. So the car behavior, the lap time, and you could arrive at a completely different approach than any other driver would do. So you do like that. I think this is also really cool when you're really into setups. You look at, let's say I would look at a Himo setup and like, oh dang, they actually went this direction with it, you know. And I'm also not saying that like one approach is best or the other, but it's overall at the end of the day, for you it's important that you can manage that car for a long stint or with a hot lap or whatever. I think that's the most important thing. When we look at suspension stiffness, like spring stiffness and damper stiffness, if you're looking up race car theory and you go deeper, we see that simulation and real life spring and suspension tuning get intertwined and mixed up. So you got real explanations for the real life, and then you have the simulation truth, basically, and which is still an interpretation of the real thing. So I think with springs being connected with the dampers, it's very important to have the springs set up in a predictable way where you don't get really obvious behavior or get rid of obvious behavior. So I will just open up the setup and this Porsche. Well, and I'm going to use this Porsche as an exercise. Okay, I also have an example for the Corvette, by the way, which is really interesting. Let me share my screen. Okay, so for Spa with the Porsche, I run a mid downforce level 4.8. I think that 4.8 is a great mix of aggression and safety. And I will just share my decisions that I make on this particular car and setup. So in Le Mans Ultimate, I pretty much aims towards stiffer springs and softer rear springs for the simple nature of the entry. When we brake, when we trail brake, when we enter corners, the front springs are going to help me to get that stability under braking, and the softer rear springs going to help me with road connectivity and basically a rear biased grip. If we go to the dampening of this example, I'm picking for the Porsche really stiff rebound on the front and on the back. But before I can explain these damper values, I want to show you some slides that go outside of the game. A very simple thing about the bump is like how fast the wheel moves up. And you could look at it from the bumpiness and like track connectivity. If it moves up quickly, we have a soft bump setting. And if it's kind of like stiff bump compression, it like goes up slowly. So whenever you hit a bump with like a hard bump or a high bump compression value, you see typically the car jump up more, and with the soft one it's more like a mattress, you know, the car just eats up the bumps basically. So the same goes for the rebound. If it's like a soft rebound, we get a wheel that wants to go back into this pothole, for instance, and when it's stiff it stays in the wheel arc. And from an aerodynamic standpoint, this has a lot of advantages. For instance, the Porsche has stiff rebound, so it is more about having that stiffness helping us out aerodynamically. And you will notice this in the next part of this like session, that we can really feel those changes on the rebound and why I pick this for the Porsche, for instance. And I have another thing I want to show you as well. So in this video I have damper presets, and if you're car setup building, you want to kind of think about, and this is in Le Mans Ultimate, yeah, you cannot like assume this for every other sim, but you want to keep them close together first. because, like, for instance, this is like the bump and the rebound and the fast bump and the fast rebound on the front and on the rear. I want to kind of keep them together. I always pick a little bit more rebound. So if you have like a rally car jumping on a ramp and it lands, then when it lands, it's like the bump makes sure the car lands in a control way, like how fast the car is landing. And then when the suspension is completely like squatted inwards, it needs to like go back because we need to extend. But if we have more extension, then the car will be more planted and go up a little bit more slowly. And then you get that planted feel in a race car. If you reduce, if you have low rebound everywhere, then you get the pogo stick. The car keeps jumping. It's like basically turning off the shock absorber, and you get a jumping car, which gets very unstable. So always, when you're building your setups, dampers pretty much will be one of the last things you're gonna look at. But when you're tuning a setup yourself and you see that rebound or bump or fast rebound is all over the place, it's a good idea to get some sort of a default value first, so that creates like a predictable situation for every other parameter on the car. If you have massive, like let's say you have massive bump or something, or massive fast bump, and you're changing ride heights and whatever, you get very unpredictable things happening because your rebounds are so weird. Like, again, I want to take that meal philosophy. Like, if you're putting too much salt on your meal all the time, you're not gonna feel the difference between like a different part of the chicken, you know? You'll still taste the freaking salt in the meal. So you want to get like some sort of a default value. And when you are on a smooth track, you typically see that we aim for some more rebound, so we get more of that planted feel. And when we have bumpy tracks, we go a little bit lower on the rebound, so we can absorb those shocks a little bit. But this is where that video ends on YouTube, and I want to go a lot deeper here to give you even more examples. So if we go here, for instance, if you have the car already set up in like a predictable way and you want to go to the limit and drive faster and faster, for instance, if you hit your initial entry, so you hitting the brakes and you always feel the car wants to twitch on you, like the initial moment, then you could add more bump to everything over here. And from an aerodynamic standpoint, you get less dive of the car. But you don't changing ride heights, you don't change springs. It's just this small moment where you can enjoy a little bit higher bump setting, for instance. And by the way, I will share the slides with you, okay? So you don't have to memorize this. Not this far. Do you have any questions, or you want to, or am I going too fast? Tell me.
It's actually very, very interesting, and I'm just absorbed about what you're saying. Actually, that's why I'm not really talking much.
No, okay, because I'm like I will keep talking, but you gotta have to like stop me and say, oh wait, you know?
Of course.
Okay, so and this is basically the idea is how I'm thinking about it, right? So when we move on, if I have my aerodynamic behavior, let's just talk it from the aerodynamic. You both have the Art of Car setups, right?
Yes.
And you have a little bit of a grasp of the aero box movement, right?
Yes.
Okay, so when we have bump, aerodynamically we have a prevention of the front shift of that aero box. It's not moving forward quickly. It will move forward because we're not changing ride heights, we're not changing like the stiffness, but it will take some time. So when we have a stiff bump, you tend to prevent the aero box moving forward. And if we now add also rebound to this, now we get when we hit the brakes, from the front axle, we're not making the car dive on the front. And when we brake on the rear, it also not unsquats. So for a brief moment, we don't have a rake change. We don't have an aero box movement in the initial braking zone. And I know this sounds really complicated, but what it basically means is that we get a very safe car on our entry from an aerodynamic standpoint.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
But the thing is that if you do this kind of setup, then the car doesn't pitch a lot. So does it actually also hinders a bit the braking performance?
Yes. It could be. Because, and that's the road connectivity effect. So whenever you change a value on bump or rebound, you're always making a compromise for aerodynamic strength and road connectivity, like mechanical grip. So we have these two like pillars. We have like, do we want aerodynamic performance or do we want road connectivity and mechanical grip? If you pick a lot of mechanical grip, so you go very soft on dampers, so the wheel will have more connectivity on track, it will follow every bump and whatever, then a side effect of this is that we get these aero shifts a lot. The car will be more able to pitch, it will be more able to squat quickly, and whenever we hit the brakes or a throttle, we get a lot of this aero shifts with when dampers are soft. So when they are stiff, if we have a smooth track, we want that ride height control, and we can sacrifice a little bit mechanical grip, for instance for the braking zone, because it's such a smooth and flat track and we have that safe entry. So you will make a compromise, and the complexity of it is of course the dampers and the rest of the setup. But we'll get into this as well. There's like some shortcuts you can make, and braking. I have found in Le Mans Ultimate as well. If you can pick the best damper setup that will, in theory, give you the most grip on track. But if that means that you always kind of twitch on a certain corner, for instance, like you lose 2-3 tenths on the second sector because it's kind of twitchy, you know, it's kind of dangerous, then you need to decide if the perfect damper setup is actually something you can manage. Because if your control and your feeling in the car is just not right, it doesn't really matter if you have the best optimal damper setup. You will never extract the pace out of it anyways. It's better to have a good behaving car, if you ask me. If I am not an e-sporter, most of us aren't, we don't have to worry so much about this. Obviously, you can aim toward it and refine your driving to drive better damper setups, but then again, it's also wildly dependent on how the rest of the car is set up. I will just show you a few things that you can use in your own damper setups that like would really help you on like smooth tracks and bumpy tracks. So you can start working with something, and then later I will also explain like a little bit of the over and understeer that you can create with dampers, which is still the spice, you know? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So yeah, for this effect, this is something I would not recommend. Typically, I would not go super stiff bump or super stiff rebound or this combination. It's just to show you an example. But if you're finding yourself tuning dampers like this, there might be a brake balance problem or a ride height problem or a spring setting problem. If you're going really weird with these types of changes, you might just have too much rake. You need to reduce the rake. You know what I mean? So if you go very wild on the suspension here, then normally something else needs to change in the setup. Let's see. Oh yeah, so this is like first we were stiffening up the front bump and the rear rebound, but now we're doing a stiff rebound. And what does that mean now? So when we stiffen up front rebound, we are preventing the car to unpitch. So whenever you hit the brakes with the soft bump, nothing is changing. The rear has just the normal dampening values. But when we increase a bunch of rebound, when we now hit the gas, we have the front of the car staying more planted on track. So that means that we have a lot of rotation aerodynamically, so the car will stay low. And in ACC, for instance, this was the meta. It was basically maximum rebound because it would favor the simulation aerodynamically, and that was just considered faster. Every time you were increasing the rebound, you just got more lap time and you got more grip in the corners because the suspension model of that sim was just really favoring this behavior. In Le Mans Ultimate, however, not on every car, you lose out on, like you said before, braking performance and road connectivity. So what this does is when you got a bunch of rebound on a corner spring, you have a wheel that stays in the wheel arch, and if you, let's say, do this on a hypercar, you very quickly lock up the inside because when you're cornering, the inner wheel is just searching for traction. So this is also not a great idea, but from an aerodynamic standpoint, you have a lower car. Again, if you're running a smooth track with not a lot of elevation changes or bumps, you aim towards a value like this because it favors your aerodynamic performance. And you got, again, this trade-off, like how much you do. When we add rear bump to the mix, this effect is getting like amplified. So for instance, if I would exit like a mid-speed corner, 150, 160 kilometers, and we hit the gas, then when we hit throttle, we preventing the car to squat. So aerodynamically, the rear stays longer up in the air and the front stays lower as well. So this particular type of tuning gives us so much more rotation and oversteer when we hit the gas. Again, road connectivity with the high bump makes the rear really unstable because if you're hitting a bump, the rear of the car will unsettle quickly because the suspension is not absorbing that bump. So you get a really skittish oversteery car like this. If you do this setting on Sebring, you will pretty much be like corner one and the last corner, the first corner, you will pretty much spin the car a lot of times because you're such a skittish ride and you have so much downforce on the front. So that is a little bit of the differences. Again, I want to point out you want to keep them together to have more of a predictable behavior. Any questions?
Yes. Playing on dampers, since it helps the car to, it can help the car to squat maybe, or let's just keep it like pitched or squatted. That means that in a way you're getting, with extreme values, you're getting some force that are going on then transferred to the tires, right? My
Yes.
understanding. So it means that in a way you could eventually also like regulate the tire temperature uh, with the damper setting. Like if I have a front that is basically a little bit too cold, can I also help my front tires to be hot, to run hotter with a damper setting that is a bit stiffer on the front?
In real life, I'll bet it changes the temperature. The last test that I did, and I have to admit, I did not test this on this particular model, but in Le Mans Ultimate, stiffer suspension does not change the tire heat.
That's
so that's not going to influence it. I tested this a while back, and I will after you said this, I will retest it and I will report back to you because I think it's important. But for instance, an example of this is I'm running a super soft suspension rear damper setup and rear suspension on the Corvette, for instance, and very stiff on the front. And I just keep the rear just heats up more than the front. So there's like some inconsistency there. Also, the tire modeling and the stiffness, it does not translate into heat. You need to do that with the brake ducts and your inputs. If you're steering too much, if the brake ducts are too much closed, you will generate more heat.
Right.
Also, Whoop Gaming, do you have any questions?
No, it's pretty clear for me, to be honest.
Okay. So, it's with dampers, if you want to exercise it, you kind of want to use Sebring or Qatar, Silverstone maybe. These are like big differences, right? I mean, like it's pretty obvious that on Sebring with all the bumps and like the road surface is so rough, then this is a setup we kind of don't want, damper preset, because there's like this stiff fast movement. The fast movement, and I got this from a comment from my damper video because I wasn't really thinking about it, the fast, because it's like the bump and rebound is already very subtle, and the car behavior on this fast movements is pretty insignificant. It's almost impossible to feel anything. Again, it will get weird if you go up and down with them, if you get them together. The idea when I'm aiming towards now, for instance, if I be on Qatar or Silverstone, I would aim towards a bit of more stiffness. So we have this, like, again, from a more nuanced point, we have more a stable platform with a smooth track. And when we go on a track that is very bumpy, I tend to bring them softer so it can absorb more of this rough road terrain, so the tire will follow the track a little bit better. And that was also the point where I want to make about the Sebring. Sebring, like, as the lots of bumps and potholes, it could be a great idea to get a little bit lower rebound in this example. But the trade-off is obviously again going to be your aerodynamics, because with lower rebound you get more unsquatting behavior of the car. It will unpitch faster, so your initial throttle you will get more understeer. The initial braking you get more oversteer. And with a setup like Sebring, I found on lots of cars, I typically run a bit more front ride height, a bit less rear ride height, because aerodynamically I don't have a lot of margin left with soft suspension, soft dampening, because I want to use that soft dampening to have the grip and the road connectivity on a track like Sebring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't really know the other tracks that you've said, but I could eventually make the same comparison with Paul Ricard and Sebring, I guess, to an extent.
Yeah.
So I quite get it, because Paul Ricard and Sebring are really my favorite tracks right now.
Okay, good.
So I can really feel the difference between damper setting between like Sebring and Paul Ricard.
The problem with Paul Ricard, though, is that you do have to take one curb in corner one, or corner two, actually. So, and there's also the fast right-hander, where you also want to take the curb or not. It's a decision you need to make. For instance, if you go, I will show that in the next example. Like this is like this was the bumpy track, you know, and then when we go on, for instance, we go on Paul Ricard or Silverstone, we could be looking at a damper setup like this, and this is completely isolated from the springs. you would typically feel that with a track like Paul Ricard or Silverstone or Qatar, that we want to run stiff rear springs as well over here. But for me, the overall car feeling that I have in Le Mans Ultimate, if I stiffen up rear springs, I cannot get the rear to get that planted feel on the throttle. I would constantly spin. It's like really twitchy, oversteery. You saw my driving style, yeah, with like hitting the gas, using that full throttle everywhere. If I have too much rear stiffness, I mean, it's just lets go the rear a lot of times. But these damper setups on soft springs do actually work for me. So the fine tuning in dampers on smooth tracks, for instance, like Paul Ricard, and you do want to take that curb, there's definitely some tweaking here that you go a little bit softer on the dampers on the rear, for instance, to help a little bit favor more stability to the rear. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, for instance, if I would be tuning for Paul Ricard and I get this, like after a couple of laps, it's like every time the rear kind of wants to like betray me, then I would go a little bit softer on all settings, for instance. Same goes for if you have corner 1 on Sebring, for instance, and you have your soft damper setup. If you just increase every value to the front, now you get a little bit more of that understeer as you're transitioning through the whole corner. It's not necessarily gonna make a big difference, but especially when tires are wearing or you're getting fatigued or you're losing some sharpness in your driving, like adding a little bit of stiffness. So for instance, if the damper clicks go like from 0 to 10 and they were on, let's say on 2, you bring them up to 4, for instance. And now you get through the whole corner just some units of understeer as you drive. You don't change the ride height, you don't change brake bias or whatever, but now it's just a little bit more safer. All right? So I was thinking about doing this exercise with the Porsche on Spa and with a particular setup, so you can actually feel it, how that actually feels like on the same setup. And I will drive as well, and I'll show in the telemetry on the histograms how that shifts in the telemetry as well, so you get like an idea how the game like interprets back to the telemetry. Would you guys think that's cool or useful?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
useful.
Until this far, is there again any questions or things you want to know or?
Personally, I have another question, but is still on the dampers, but a little bit less related to all this right now.
Go ahead.
And I'm not sure if it's actually really dependent on dampers. I know that by changing them, I did kind of solve this kind of problematic. So
Okay.
my problem was originally with the McLaren, actually.
Yeah.
And the problem I had is in the Ford chicanes at Le Mans.
Yeah.
I noticed that sometimes I had to stiffen up my dampers because the car wasn't following the movements, the very rapid movements that I was doing in those chicanes. I don't know if it's really the dampers that really help me control the car better in that situation, in the right left and then left right. I mean left and right. I mean, you know what I
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean,
You
right?
go from left to right and the transition
Yeah,
left to
exactly.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the first chicane, you have to take it at 150, and the car in the first chicane gets really unstable, even
Okay.
without touching any curb.
Okay.
But by stiffening the dampers, suggested by someone that was in my team, in our community, we actually solved a bit that problem.
Oh yeah. 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 Which dampers, the front or the rear?
I don't recall right now. I think both.
Okay. Yeah. So um, again, it's gonna greatly depend on, like, if you have an entry when you're braking and you're on the entry, for instance. For instance, the McLaren. I'm on the top of my head. I'm not 100% sure, but if you're already running a low wing, which will drastically, probably on Lamar you're running the lowest wing. I believe they increased the wing, the default, like the lowest setting you can go. Anyways, if you already have soft springs, if you don't carry packers on the front with the low wing, if you already have like soft front anti-roll bars, and you hitting the limits on front dampening, then there might be other things that should be changed first, for instance. Because, like, but if it's very subtle, and it's like, let's say you were increasing the front spring or you're increasing the front anti-roll bar, and you already have, now you have it too stable all of a sudden, then the dampers are a good idea. So, for instance, if your springs and anti-roll bars are already giving you too much of a change, then a dampers is a great idea, because it's like the slider in between. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Also, with this example, I hope, I really hope, I'm like, this is a little bit of an experiment, but when the example on Spa on the Porsche, I'll first let you drive on the setup that I just created, and you might feel a unit of understeer. Then we change those rebound dampening and a little bit of the bump. And then, and initial, when you go out, you think, well, it's maybe better, but then it starts to twitch on you, like, unpredictably. And it's like, oh my God, this is not nice. And I'm really curious if you can feel those changes. And this is a little bit of the contrast you're looking for when you're doing these damper changes. So if you have, for instance, on it, like the Ford chicanes on Le Mans, if you have this very subtle oversteer, then yes, those dampenings on the front, increase them a little bit, will really solve that issue. So, does that answer the question a little bit?
Yes. Yes, I mean, I also need to see some practice, put everything together.
Also, I have this from a other video. It was like an other simulation. It was quite a while back. The transition from like chicane driving from left to right. If you have soft bump, for instance, but you still have the stiff springs and stiff anti-roll bar, you still get the car to be really agile on the front axle. So the dampening from the transition from left to right isn't really I don't really feel the dampers are responsible for this. You are more responsible on how fast you make the transition. Steering will have 9 out of 10 times more influence on how the car kind of settles in the corner. So if you, for instance, go do a chicane and you feel it's lazy, the best solution in that regard is better to just be more aggressive with the steering and kind of show who's boss than going back to the dampers and start stiffening everything up, because you're changing a lot of other areas as well when you do this. So some cars are just lazy by nature and others are super twitchy by nature. We do tweak the setup to get it to our liking, but sometimes cars have just this character. And if you want to get rid of the character, you sometimes make too much big of compromises for your lap time. So sometimes, like the Corvette, I'm making a lot of compromises in lap time to make it actually a digestible car for me, for instance.
I mean, I cannot really talk badly about the Corvette. We just finished also the 12 hours with it.
What? So tell me.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good car in my opinion. But
okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I like cars that are a bit twitchy by nature. But the thing is that in the Corvette, I really like the last Mulsanne
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah.
It's a car that basically doesn't need any kind of weird input. It just basically does the corner alone.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And to me, it's something that is fantastic. I just love it. I don't know.
Oh, it's interesting that you like the Ford as well now,
Mhm.
or did you not drive that yet?
Uh, I did try the Ford. Um the thing is that the Ford I just tried it with fixed setup, so it was very twitchy, and I had to up a lot on the traction control, so I didn't really enjoy it. I
No.
think I should try it with a proper setup,
Yeah.
and I think I might like it too. But I like the character that the Ford has actually.
Okay.
I
So
don't dislike it.
okay, it's really interesting to me because from all the feedback I got on the Corvette, on what I basically have built and people have driven it, um, so much people struggle with the Corvette in so many ways. Me myself as well. It's like I don't like the car that turns out of itself. I don't really enjoy that. But yeah, that's also something really important about everything that I'm saying to you. Is like we are all different. We all want different things in the cars. Um, so
Well, in a way, I saw how you drive, and basically we are a bit at the opposite. Like, I prefer to make small inputs that are very calculated,
yeah,
but I want to, like, how can I say, I comply more to the car behavior. While you are driving, you're very aggressive on your input, and basically, I don't know if I cannot say it in a way that is not like. Um, Basically, you want the car to do what you want. You want to show that you're the boss to the car, right?
yeah.
So that's a bit of a difference. I see that you're very aggressive on your inputs while driving. While you showed me a lap around Le Mans
Yeah, yeah.
last time, and I'm quite at the opposite. So maybe I think that that could be why I prefer a car more like the
Yeah,
Corvette.
yeah, yeah. Sure, sure. Sure. I'm also not like I like that for me it's like also kind of the trade-off in what do you like and how what favors you. Like the aggressive style that I have with my inputs is basically a style that I can maintain for days in a row. I can do like 6-8 hours driving like that, and I will be in control. As I fatigue more in longer races, I don't have this car that needs this precise input all the time. Because one spin and you're done. So on the pure lap time, it might be a little bit like hot lapping. It will be a little bit painful at times. But then when races start, I see a lot of people like spinning, making mistakes, multi-class, tire wear. All these factors starts to play a part. And so, and that last example before we go to track is this setting that I want to show you, and this is what something I use on the Corvette. And again, this will be the text will be here. I created this this morning. What I basically have a lot of times, and I tried this morning on the Corvette as well to see if it's still valid. So I'm picking a low bump because the Corvette doesn't want to turn in the initial braking when we're going fast. It doesn't want to do it. It just wants to be in a straight line. On a high speed, it's very understeery. So whenever I hit the brakes, I want that front to squat or to pitch. I want to let it dive in the initial braking zone. When we're talking about the rear rebound, I want the rear to go up as well at the same time. So I do massively soft rear rebound on that car, for instance. Then, when I'm mid-corner, the Corvette, like you said, wants to turn in and out of itself. And if you have great rebound settings, like you bring this closer to the front, you get this biting feeling on the Corvette, which tends to make me oversteer. So to enjoy aerodynamic behavior on lots of like fast aerodynamic corners, I tend to have more rebound, and this kind of hurts the mid slow corner traction, which allows me to steer a bit more, to be more aggressive on the steering, and which I can now like keep control. When I'm hitting a bump or a curb or whatever, the front is actually very bad on the front grip, and the rear is so compliant. But this way, this allows me to use a little bit lower traction control, have a stable rear end, and a planted feel on a Corvette, for at least that is possible. Again, what you said earlier, this high rebound is a little bit painful on lap time, because it's like we're missing out on some road connectivity. And that's also with the fast bump and the fast bump on the rear and the front difference. This is basically how I would set up the Corvette in a lot of ways, and there's nuances to this, so I might go a bit stiffer on higher setup levels, or a bit softer on the front, but this is something I would use for the Ford and for the Corvette, just because these rear ends are so tricky. So this is a little bit of an extreme outlier example where I'm picking from. Also, you need to know that the Corvette and the Mustang already have the stiffest front springs in this setup and have the softest rear anti-roll bar and spring setup. And even then, I don't feel it's enough to maintain control. So yeah, that's a little bit of the reality of those particular cars.
All right.
So, last thing before we go into the practice is that because I'm like questioning this, I'm not saying this is best. So what I did today, I was increasing the bump again, lowering the rebound. I went for more normal values on the Corvette. Also the rear, I made a lot stiffer to see if my own beliefs are actually still true, because like we learn and like I'm also, my knowledge also still expands. So sometimes I made decisions in the past where I like what I changed. But what happened when I stiffened it up, I've got a better car and I started driving and I was like, oh my God, I might need to change all of these sliders on every setup on the car packs that I created because it feels better. And then I took that curb and I spun. And I was like, you see? And this is why I aim towards this, because if I one time hit that curb wrong, or I'm a little bit more aggressive on the braking and steering, then the normal suspension setup will just kill me. And I know from the customers that I have that they have the same problem. So that's why I'm doing this. But again, everyone's different.
We did a lot of trial and error for the same reason on the Corvette. Especially because we were losing a bit the car at Tetra Rouge and at the end of the Porsches.
Yeah.
The last corner that is
Yeah.
where you need to cut the yellow sausage curbs.
Yes,
right?
yes.
My solution to that, to the Corvette, I did it a bit like blindly because it was just a trial and error basically.
Yeah.
But what helped me to get a lot of stability, it was basically increase the fast bump in the front and the rear by 5-6 points.
Okay.
And at that point, I had the car that was really able to eat every bump, every corner.
Interesting.
So I cannot explain why it wasn't really. I don't really have a reason on why I did that. I just tried by trial and error, and it worked.
Okay, well.
Maybe it's a placebo effect.
No, maybe, but also what also can happen, and sometimes it's not really clear, is like if you increase bump values, like if it's fast bump or slow bump, you also reduce a bottoming out effect that you might have. So bottoming out, for instance, rear suspension, if it's super soft and you don't carry a lot of ride heights, for instance, you could bottom out the car. And that could also, let's say you jump a bump and you don't have the wheel going over the bump, but the floor of the car, as you're rotating, you could just bottom out the car and spin it like that, So if you would increase the bump maybe a little bit on the front and the back, maybe the car just like unsettles a bit better, like jumps the curb a little bit better, then maybe that's the solution. That's also possible. There's so much stuff. Like, again, also with the bump, if you have more bump, you just have the car will be bottoming out less. I use this with hypercars a lot. If I go very soft on the fast bump dampening, they tend to bottom out more quickly because the wheels will just go up very quickly, and you had the floor hitting the track earlier. So it's also something you can really think about. So, yeah. Shall we start the server and go to the example?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Have you guys have the setup loaded that I sent in the Discord?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Do some laps. Maybe if you're attacking Eau Rouge properly, you can do it. Do a small lift, but do a couple of laps. Just on the 50% fuel, like it is, like completely like it is. I don't know if you like this type of setup or whatever, but just get an overall feeling in the car, and then afterwards we make a significant damper change, and then I'm curious if you can then feel that difference, like, and again, it maybe it's better for you, or maybe you think, oh, I can now see why this change happened and how it feels.
I think I picked. I'm sorry, but I think I picked the wrong one. It's the long pit
Yeah.
exit.
Oh, well, then you just need to have more pit exit time so you can like chill a bit. You picked the endurance one.
Yes.
Right. Crash into the wall.
Yeah, and
In
you
the pit.
gotta drive through as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll get some water. I will be right back. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Like I have this like different levels, right? So I have also a level 5 that's gonna be more twitchy. And safer levels as well. It's basically how I use it myself, how I always used it myself. Also before I was on the YouTube and stuff, I would have like different aggressions. Especially for me at least, if I would be driving, like I would not drive for a whole month, for instance. I would go back to the sim and I would find that my setup that I was like tweaking for days and days was all of a sudden way too aggressive, so I had to go back to something more safe. That's why I picked these levels, because a lot of times if I now pick a car that I didn't drive a long time, I just pick a level 3 and then pick level 4 and then end up level 5, like, okay, yeah, now I got the balance right, aggression, lap time, all that stuff. I will also do a few laps so we can have some telemetry that I can show you. This particular damper setup, my friend Ringelberg, he's like doing Porsche driving only, and he says like I do tweak every setup you build, but I keep the dampers like they are, and he's like driving like 218s on Spa. So
That's a very nice lap time.
yeah, that's a really... I cannot even get to those 218s. But yeah. So a little bit, maybe that will boost the confidence a little bit on how good the dampers are. Now when I did an endurance on Spa, 12 hours with the BMW as well, there was a part of the race where I kind of had to lift on Eau Rouge to just stay alive. But if you could see how many people die there in endurance races, then a little element of understeer is actually, I think, very welcome to not die. I only have to lift like a tiny bit, like if you just come off the throttle and it immediately wants to do the corner. Still hitting 260 at the end of the straight. So, 28. Oh, there's a lot of time to gain. Like, I think there's a second in the lap at least. So if you guys come back to the pit.
Yep.
So if you go to the setup screen. And you go to the, let's just review a little bit of the setup itself. So we have 2 centimeters or 2.5 centimeters of rake in the car on the suspension tab. We have no packers. Front springs are pretty stiff. If I reduce the front springs, you get Puhan rotation. You get the after camel straight. Those corners become really twitchy. And like if you go, let's say, go a lot lower, then you'll get a lot more like rotation, like unwanted rotation, in my opinion. I will also share the screen here so you can maybe have a look. Also, again, front interroll are pretty stiff, and the mid wing setting, or like a more lower wing, so we can not lose so much time on straights. That's basically the idea. Now, I want you to try a different damper approach where we go pretty much this almost the same value as the bump. So let's make it 15 on the rebound on the rear, and on the front. So the new values of dampening will be 15, 15 on the slow on the front. And on the rear, slow bump and rebound is, let's also do that 15, 15. So we have a lot softer dampening. So we get more aero shifts. So you'll find on Air Rouge, for instance, that because of the softer bump, you might feel that it wants to turn a little bit better in Air Rouge. With less rebound dampening on the rear and the front, we get more aero shift. So the car will pitch and squat more. So you'll get more road connectivity on the rear, but you also get more pitch. So I'm really curious if you find this different. And the goal is not to say this is better or worse, but this just changes a nuance of the car, the spice. Maybe the meal is more salted now. Maybe you like that, or maybe you don't. So have a look and also drive this. And then we can later look in the telemetry what that meant in the histogram. Okay?
Locking enabled.
You got the values?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what the change we did is that the rear tires now will be able to go out of its wheel arch more quickly. Also on the front, the car will dive more now, so there's more pitch behavior. When we hit the brakes, we have the rear tires going out of the wheel arch quickly, so we have from the rear, we have a car that unsquats quicker and we have more pitch. So yeah, I'm curious. When I drive this, I get more oversteer moments. It's maybe a bit safer in Eau Rouge, but Puhan sometimes catches me out. So yeah, and you might not even feel this in the beginning, but as you push a bit harder, you'll find that the car starts to acts out a little bit differently. By the way, I gained like 2/10 in the first corner and pretty much lost time everywhere else.
To me, it feels much better.
I can imagine. You like that aero shift better. Most likely. It's you know, it's a very subjective thing as well. You know, if you're going, I just lose so much in no name with if I do this.
I mean, no name is a bit slidey, I have to admit.
And what about you, Vultjes?
For me, this feels better.
Okay.
The only thing I can complain, honestly, is just a bit of sliding at the end of slow corners. I mean, at the exit of slow corners. That's the
Okay.
only thing I have to complain about.
I did improve the lap time now, though. The problem is also with my driving currently is that, like, after 1 or 2 or 3 laps, I get to know the Porsche better, and I know how to pull time out of it. It also becomes more understeery, so I will go. If I would be racing the Porsche now, I will be on level 5, and then maybe if after like a few races, I would do even more changes. So it's also something that needs to keep evolving as well. So in this part, I have to do more like lifting. Maybe we can review the lap and just explain as of sheer lap time what I'm doing and what the difference is. And again, it's also kind of a subjective thing.
Log building finished.
But you feel a difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's the most important thing, because if you would say to me, "There's this, it feels the same," then I failed this experiment.
So I felt the difference in the double gauche. Also, I felt it at Blanchiment
More turn
and
in,
Eau Rouge.
more turn in.
I felt like mid corner the car was gripping a bit more and had more rotation as well. That's what I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The entry was more, a little bit more aggressive. In in some corners, maybe a bit too much aggressive.
Yeah.
In tight corners, I might say.
Yeah.
Not really in long ones, in fast ones. In fast ones, I actually really enjoyed it a lot.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yep, basically that's it.
You have something to add, Vultjes?
I mean, for me, it felt a bit better. The rear end was a bit looser from what I was feeling. Yeah, not much more to add from me.
Okay. So, again, you could enjoy this more, and that's all. I just also note that more setup aggression with the previous damper setting, for instance. So if we go back to the settings that damper settings that I was using, you could also just increase a little bit of ride height and get all the rotation you want and need that the level 4 didn't give you. But that's a more drastic change. We did like a damper exercise to see that a level 4 would be more beneficial for you guys, for instance, for like a different damper approach. We can also look at the telemetry, what it means. My own findings doing this is that on the slow corners, we gained grip. I have a better time in the bus stop chicane, in the slow hairpin, and on turn 1. Because for the simple reason, I have now reduced the stiffness of the rebound and the front bump, creating on the slow corners, I have just more connectivity. These tires are willing to take that curb, take that elevation change, and because we also made the rear softer, the rear wants to comply more with the track. So there's basically more grip now available to us. But as for the lap time overall of itself, it is kind of the same. Maybe you like it more or less, but the most important change here is in the faster corners, because we have a more shift of the arrow. So Alberta, was it? Or Alberto? I don't remember. Was it?
Andrea?
I'm sorry, Andrea.
It's fine, fine.
Okay, yes, Andrea. So what you explained, like it's more snappy, more wants to corner better, because when you hit the brakes, you have the arrow shift going forward more quickly with slow dampers. So it's more biting on the entry in the corners, a little bit with the softer bump. You have more arrow shifts. But when you hit the throttle, let's say that something I notice in No Name and like the second sector is that when I want to end the rotation, I hit the throttle, but then I also get some understeer. So I cannot really get the foot down because the rear wants to grip a lot better, because the front rebound is pushing the car up on the front. I'm losing some aerodynamic stability. So this is like the trade-off that I'm trying to explain, is that yes, you get more traction, you get a different feeling, and you get different features of how the car acts out with a different damper approach. So yeah, I hope that makes some sense.
I mean, to me, it makes a lot of sense in the way that I will take an example. We just did Le Mans, right? So for us, the main focus was to get as fast as possible on the straight.
Yeah.
But to get that, if I increase too much, and also like be able to approach the Porsche curbs in an aggressive way, I don't lose time there, because it means if I want to be fast on the straight, it means I have less aerodynamic grips. So it means also that the Porsche curbs becomes a little bit trickier to do in a way.
Yes.
But I feel like with this good understanding of dampers, I could eventually still have a lot of aerodynamic straight line speed and less drag without increasing too much on the right side, because for my understanding also the right side the more I increase the rake, the more drag I'm creating in a way, or at least that's what it seems like when we approached the Le Mans on the straight. It was the more rake we added to the car, the slower the car was being at the end of the Mulsanne.
Okay.
And so I feel like in that particular scenario, also the dampers could help a lot to enhance some features of the car, or how can I say, make the car more compliant, even if we have some track specifics that we cannot really go outside from.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like that's the like what we did. We changed a little bit of turn in. We changed a little bit of like the dynamic and like 10-15% of the corner entry and exits, and that's where they're for, to get like, especially with for instance the Porsche curves, for instance. If you would struggle there and you were already on a really soft rebound values, for instance, then making that rebound a little bit stiffer could really like solve all of your problems in the Porsche curves, you know, from your initial entry or your exits. Could really make a difference. And it's not like a difference in lap time. It's not gonna be like 1/2 a second gained, but maintaining that corner or make it like a lot easier. So yeah, that's a little bit how you should think about it. It's not always necessarily changing the lap time, which we want, obviously, but it's just not always the case. If I open up that histogram, we can also see from the telemetry standpoint how things are a bit different. And here we have histograms. And the histograms, I recommend to not obsess over it. There's a lot of stuff here. I also have to admit that there's like the way you take curbs, the way the track is shaped, it's all influencing the histogram. But we want to aim for something that looks like this a little bit. Like the soft dampening will show on the outside, and the slow dampening will be more of the middle. You have the rebound over here, the bump. And if I compare this lap to this lap, you can see there's a big difference in how high. The white is the histogram from the softer rebound. And what that means is that it's more active. The wheel is more active on track. There's actually a big difference in the histogram. You can see the difference. So, for instance, if I compare this to this, you see the difference, right?
Yes.
So, from a histogram data standpoint, I don't really see this as an advantage at the moment. Because and the better histograms come from more and more laps without taking any curbs. So if I spread out here on the bottom or on the top, you see the green line. Yeah, I'm spreading it out over more laps, and you'll see that it is becoming a more nicer shape. So for instance, if I do lots and lots of driving, that shape will get flatter and flatter, as it is an average of how a histogram works. So if I go a really short moment, for instance, here, you can see there's like a lot of variance on how that histogram acts. I still need to do a lot of research because also how the sim works, but basically you want to have a shape that is kind of equal. And there's a little bit more on the rebound here than on the bump, so there's a little bit of difference there. But overall, it looks pretty good. Or equal at least. Good is not, I'm not sure. And here we have a more force, because there is like, the suspension is stiffer, and you can see it's aiming more towards that. It's a bit higher here on the rear as well. So from a histogram standpoint, this doesn't look really, this looks a little bit worse because it's not really in the middle, and you want to get that bell curve like on this one. Just forget about this. This is something I'm also still researching, because I have seen histograms that were a little bit to the lefty, and I got great results, great races, great performance. If we go to ride heights and we compare the two, now I'm not sure, maybe we won't see a difference here. We actually do. So for instance, if I take lap 1, yeah, this is a good example. Can you guys see the lines, by the way, a little bit?
Yeah, yes.
Maybe lap 2. Yeah,
Don't know
here
if
you
I
can
can,
really
but I
see the
can.
difference. And this is how we can explain it as well. So the orange line and the blue line, these represent average smooth ride heights. So not with like a lots of spikes. So for instance, if I go to this ride heights, these are with all the spikes. So every time I'm hitting the curb, here is Eau Rouge, by the way. So if I do the track over here, so you can see here on the dot, this is Eau Rouge, Blanchiment. You see there's big spikes in ride heights, because it's like, you know, the car is like, this is a really extreme situation. If we go to smooth ride heights, we don't have those spikes. So it's more smooth. But it will show you the slow rebound change when we are in the corner of, how do you call it? What's this called again? It's like after Camel Straight on this part.
I forgot.
You can see, if I zoom this a little bit, the ride height differences between the two cars. For instance, and let me say this properly, the 207, the white line over here, on this particular point, when we hit the brakes, trail braking, because we have the like a small trail brake here, or we're actually not on the brakes, by the way. We're just coasting. We're hitting the throttle a little bit. So we're hitting the throttle here on this point. And you can see that the lap with the softer dampers, we are carrying a more ride height change. So average rear ride height on the rear with the stiffer dampers is like 76. And with the soft dampers, it's 83. Right? But on the straight, it's the same. So you changing aerodynamically something with stiffer or softer dampers. And this is all that like nuance and that feeling you get from that change. So that's how good the dampers really are. How they were set up. Also for this example, you can also see here that the like the ride heights are pretty different as we have the stiff dampers, like taking more time to go back to their original ride heights. So this is a bit odd. This is not really adding up. And we have different situations. Oh yeah, here as well. On this part of the track, so this is the corner, the fast corner where we went up on the straight. With the stiff dampers, I could hit the throttle better. I could just floor it more. I had to do like maybe a tiny lift on the exit, like over here. But I have more ride height control with the stiffer dampers. So, any questions?
I mean, not at the moment. I'm just trying to put everything together.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a lot, yeah?
It's a lot of information.
Yeah, I get it. It might be too much. I might simplify this in the future. Also, I will record this. You will get the link for this video. I will put it on YouTube and a hidden link. I will cut some pieces out so you can keep the information. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
If there's do you have any more questions or things you want to add to this?
I mean, right now, I think to me, I don't know if Whoop agrees, but to me, it's just a matter of testing out things.
Yeah. And those preset slides that I created also going to help you to shortcut a lot of it. So these slides could really like you can read the text, like and think about this as well. Feel free to ask me some questions later, right? I mean, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that I will have many questions later, but right now I need to metabolize a bit everything.
Yeah. Now you're fat on information.
Exactly. So that's why. Also, I think that trying reading again everything and rewatching it and maybe test different cars eventually, like on Sebring and different tracks, could also help me understand a lot better many things.
Yeah.
But to me right now is a lot of testing that need to be done, a lot of practice. But the theory was, in my opinion, it was very well explained.
Okay, good. That's most important. Because it's I try to do it the best way possible, but it's always hard to think about if like anyone would understand, because I watched a lot of stuff when I was learning this and it was so complicatedly explained, like, oh my god, why, like things about dampers, and a lot of people, they immediately open the book of frequencies, like tire frequencies, and then searching the frequencies, and I'm like, what, why? Well, I mean, I get like horrible braking. Who cares about the frequencies? So yeah, but maybe later I'll be more advanced and I think that frequencies are super important. I don't know, but for now I'm not touching those kind of ideas because it's
I mean, step by step, I guess.
yeah. So yeah. I want to thank you guys for the support, and I hope you got some value of this. And